Boats and Hoes, Boats and Hoes.
From the start to the finish, go hard and we winning. It's the heart of a villain, it's the heart of a villain. From the start to the finish, go hard and we winning. It's the heart of a villain, it's the heart of a villain. Hey yo, heart of a villain beats hard in the centrifuge. Bearded BP, 100 interviews. All it takes is 2 mics and 1 line. This is Bearded Villains podcast worldwide. Driving cross countries, getting ball tires. Fam across ponds, always inspired. Chapters connect, and then it's on fire. Check your phone, cause BV is like a live wire. They said that we couldn't do it and that another could. Never underestimate the power of brotherhood. Every bro, every chapter, every caption. Heart of a villain, bro, lights, camera, action. Action, action, action. Let's go. From the start to the finish, go hard and we winning. It's the heart of a villain.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Thursday night edition of The Heart of a Villain, the podcast and live stream devoted to the Bearded Villains Worldwide Brotherhood. I say it too often. Those words just fall off the tongue now, and I feel like it doesn't mean anything, but it does. It's the podcast and live stream devoted to the Bearded Villains Worldwide Brotherhood, and I say the lives, they're changing every day, but you know that. Hey, it is the 29th of June. Can you believe 29th of June? We are about to fly into the month of July. It's kind of insane, really, that we're doing this, but it is what it is, man. We're into July soon. Next week we'll be into July, and we're halfway through the year. It's crazy. Where did the time go? But we have a huge night for us tonight, and I have no idea. I have no idea where this is going to take us. I have a general idea because I made some notes. I made lots of notes, and I copied the many notes and comments that I received after I put it out to the interwebs last night when I said that question that you so responded to so gently and nicely. Well, not so gently in some cases, but we're gonna talk about it, guys. We're gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna do any merch stuff specifically tonight, other than to tell you that Northern Indiana is still selling hats on a pre-sale. That's just because it's my show. But I didn't want to take a whole bunch of extra time tonight talking about a whole bunch of stuff that's not the topic of the day. And we kind of know what that is. We're talking about BV and has it changed? People say that, BV has changed, and they use that as a reason for them leaving. BV's changed. It's not what it once was. And I received a whole boatload of really good responses from people, some on both sides of the fence. And I think that we're going to find out when we talk about this. You're going to hear that it sounds like there's pretty much two sides of a coin here. And it depends on where your experience lies as far as how long you've been a part of BV, where you fall into that. But we are a divided house for sure on a topic like this. And hopefully, maybe not by the end of tonight, maybe it'll take to another episode, but hopefully we can come to some kind of an agreement, those of us that are listening and watching, to realize that we are somewhat broken in some ways. And if we don't fix things, they ain't gonna get any better. And it's not to say that that we're terribly broken and we're not fixable. No, far from that. But there's definitely a divide that is tangible in some places. Some places much more than others. So we're going to be talking about that. But the first thing I want to do tonight, before we get into that topic, is I think it's really important that we talk for a second about another sad incident that we had to talk about for this week. And that is the loss of a brother. Anytime we experience a loss in our Bearded Villain community, it's it's terribly heartbreaking for those closest to the person. And since we are an international brotherhood, you have no idea how far-reaching you have been in your BV journey. You have no idea all the impact that you've had with the people that you've met. And so I want to give a shout out to the brothers in West Virginia because they have lost a brother. I'm going to try to bring this up. See if I can bring this up. Sorry, folks. Having technical difficulties now. Here we go. But the West Virginia chapter lost Amish Ron this past week. And it was very unexpected. And I mean, anytime there's a loss, regardless of if it's expected or if they've, been long suffering an illness or anything like that, it's definitely a loss that's felt by many. And so just wanted to give a shout out to Ron, rest in peace, to the West Virginia chapter, to everybody that knew him best, all of his brothers closest to him, his family who grieves for him, and we grieve for you. And our prayers and our condolences are with you all. Okay. Well, I appreciate you letting me take some time out for that. I think that's important for us to acknowledge anytime we have a loss like that. And I know that the guys in West Virginia are hurting this week. But guys, I do want to give a shout out to everybody that is here real quick, live with us in the comment section. Yeah, Block was having some audio issues, and he was saying that the music at the beginning was way too loud. And then when I came on live, it sounded like I was shouting. So sorry. And pay attention, Block, because he says, "Oh, I missed that question." Oh, I missed that question. Yeah, pay attention, buddy. Pay attention. I had it out last night, and a lot of people responded today as well. So you had a full 24 hours to respond. So just real quick, give a big shout out to Robaba. Looking forward to seeing you here in the fall coming up. How you doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is early morning hours over there in England for him. How you doing? Mr. Silky Smooth. Seth, how you doing? Good to see you here. Guys from my chapter are here. More than ever, which is, well, not, I wouldn't say more than ever, but more than usual for sure. Santa, what you doing? How you doing, Robert? We have guys here because one of my guests, as I'll tell you about, is my co-captain. So they're all here for him, definitely. Good evening, everybody. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Block says, what it do, pimps? How you doing, buddy? So, yeah, they're not here for me. They're just here because the co-cap is here talking to stuff. Hey, Mars, how you doing? Good to see you here as well. Let's see who else we got here hanging out with us live that's in the comment section. I know we have a bunch of people that aren't in here. Jennifer's hanging out with us here. She heard my little blurb earlier. How you doing, Jennifer? Good to see you. Youngster hanging out with us as well. How you doing, buddy? Mr. Cole, how is it going out there in the West? Hope things are well. Hope you're doing well. All right. So I posed the question earlier this week. About 24 hours ago, really, about BV, and it kind of is a piggyback off of what we talked about last week. And toward the end of the episode, we talked about how there's some disgruntled guys about the way that they feel that the big club, BV, is or isn't supporting the chapters and everything. And what I talked about is, and they talked about that as a negative that is affecting how they look at things. And I tried to point out to everybody that we need to stop thinking about this BV, and we need to start thinking about all of the other pieces below it, which are our chapters. Those are the ones where you're making a difference. Those are the ones that you have a direct impact with. You can't control what happens at the higher level, at the main club level, but you can control what happens within your chapter, and that's the one that's going to make the most difference. That's the one that has made the biggest difference, and it's the chapters that have made Bearded Villains what it is today. The charity, the brotherhood, everything else. As you know the story, it originally started out as just photographing bearded men for social media. and it was the chapters that pushed it to what it is today. So I want to get past that. I want to leave that out real quick. And before I bring in our guests, I just have a couple of points I want to talk about real quick here, and then I'll be bringing in our guests that are very, very patiently waiting for me in the green room there. But I posed a question to y'all about what is it that causes brothers to leave? Why is it that they feel like they no longer fit in BV if they've been here for years? Is it because they only wanted to, be part-time something? They don't want to do any work that's associated with it. Is it something else? So we ask, what is the current state of BV and what is making guys feel this empty feeling? So I'll say, first of all, there is a big, huge difference between what BV is today and what it once was. We've talked about that almost at exhaustion levels in the past, and to talk about what the chapters now have become. What BV is should have zero, when I say BV, I'm talking the large umbrella, should have zero impact on what the individual chapters are and what they get to do and what you can get out of BV through those chapters. So we need to, first and foremost, keep that in mind as I scroll through my little map here. But it comes down to the chapters. So is BV supposed to, the main umbrella of BV, the big club, is it supposed to know the needs of your individual chapter? No. That's for your individual chapter to think about. And the other point that I wanted just to talk about first, and we're going to get into our guests, and we got a whole bunch of comments to go through that people have sent me, and no, I'm not going to attribute them with their comments. They're going to be anonymous. But we also have to think about, we have to remember that being a member of Bearded Villains means many different things to many different people. For some guys, it's they just wanted to belong to a group of like-minded men. Some wanted a drinking club. Some were missing a feeling of brotherhood from another part of their life that they wanted to get back. Some wanted to really jump into a charity endeavor, and Bearded Villains is allowing them to fill that need, to do all the charity stuff that they want to while maintaining the brotherhood. Each man has his own individual story, his own individual reason for finding Bearded Villains. And it's important to know that it's not up to any one of us to dictate what another brother's journey is. That's really important for us to focus on. It's not up to me to dictate your journey, just as it is not up to you to dictate my journey and what it is. For some, all of those reasons that I mentioned earlier, it's all of that. For some, it's just one of those. So the first thing that we need to do is stop harping on brothers for what some people will say, he's not all in. Well, maybe he can't be all in. We need to decide that the problem is that so often chapters have said that it's what can you do for me? What can you do for us? But at the same time, they're forgetting, what can we do for you? What can we do for the brothers? And we're going to be able to help out our brothers in different ways. And I think far often it's forgotten that, yes, we want you to be a part of Bearded Villains to see what you can contribute to us and what we can do together. But at the same time, what can we do for you? What can we do for you? For some people, Bearded Villains is a major part of their lives. It is what they think about when they go to sleep at night. It's what they think about first thing in the morning. And it's what ravages through their thoughts all day long. What they can do with Bearded Villains. It's the biggest thing in their life. That's what they have. It's the thing they look forward to most. But for others, it's just a little tiny piece of their life pie. They have all this other stuff going on in their lives, and Bearded Villains just takes up a tiny little morsel of that. And so it's, like I said, it's not up to you to dictate what it should or shouldn't be for somebody else's life. Every chapter has its own guidelines for what you have to do to be to be a participating member of the chapter. But at the same time, you need to recognize that not everybody else, if you're one of those guys that's gung-ho, that you're all in everything you do is BV, BV, BV. Not everybody's going to be that way. And it's okay for that to be the case. There's not a single other charity club, fraternity out there that punishes guys for having a life. And so we need to make sure that we're not punishing our brothers for doing just the same. So my point again, no one of us should dictate to another brother what their journey should be in BV and how much of their life it should take up. So with that, we've got a big show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to bring in my two guests for the night. One of them I said is my co-cap from Northern Indiana here, Ed. But I've also got a brother from out east in a Bay Area. I'm talking about Peaches, Chesapeake. How you doing, buddy? How's Ed and Peaches doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, brother. How you doing?
I'm good. Ed, how you doing? Okay. I think he's muted himself again. I don't have you muted. I do not have you muted, Ed. Anyway, he dropped off and kind of come back on. I don't know what happens. Maybe his device makes him muted or something when he does that. But hey, we'll bring him back in just a second. But Peaches, thanks for hanging out and staying around for my long-winded dissertation to start things off. I think Ed's back with us now. How you doing, Ed?
All right. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Anytime I get a call or a line message pops up, it's doing that. I'm not sure why.
Okay. Well, hopefully that won't happen. Nobody reach out to Ed over the next hour. Nobody reach out to him. Well, let's just start with Peaches. Tell me, you reached out to me and felt it was really important. You wanted to be a part of this conversation. So if you can, just shortly, just talk for a minute about maybe what it is that made you want to reach out when you're talking about this topic that I brought up.
So what made me reach out is probably how many chapterless villains I personally know, and the wide variety of reasons why they've chosen to not be part of a chapter. And I also reached out because it's a little disheartening when you meet some of these men, amazing villains, and doing all kinds of stuff on their own without a chapter. I mean, and imagine how much different the Brotherhood would be if we were able to have people like them be allowed to just speak their mind and do the things that, or try to do the things that they're already doing. Some of them are doing stuff on a bigger scale than some chapters. I mean, some are doing stuff, period. There's chapters that are just stagnant and aren't doing anything. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents, sort of say.
Yeah, I know, Ed, you and I were talking earlier about this, the idea of the chapterless thing. And even though this isn't supposed to be, a topic, the topic of the day isn't specifically chapterless villains, but it does come into play when you're talking about guys that have decided to leave a chapter. What were you were telling me before about, Ed, about the concern you have regarding the chapterless villains?
Well, this goes back to when I first came into BV, and chapterless was, I understand back in 2015, and I'm not a 2015 villain, but yeah, I can, their chapters didn't exist. When I came into BV in the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, somebody being chapterless was rare. That didn't happen. You were in a chapter, you stayed with your chapter, you might move and transfer somewhere else, but that was the norm, was to be in a chapter. And it's kind of weird to me now how many guys are just leaving chapters and doing their own thing. And I know there's a lot of guys that have done it very successfully, but you got to ask yourself, how much of BV are you missing by not being in a chapter?
Yeah. I agree with that. I think it is kind of sad to me to see that the whole basis of what Bearded Villains is is that you are a member of a chapter. And I know that now there's that option for guys who don't feel like they fit in anymore, or whatever it is. It's a variety of reasons. It seems like some people are very quick with the trigger to just say, fine, screw it, I'm going to be chapterless. And now it's almost become a badge of courage. It's a badge of honor where it's like, I'm chapterless, and pridefully so. And whereas I get the fact that there's some cases where that might be necessary, it is sad to see that for whatever reason, they feel like they no longer fit within that chapter for the reason. Because otherwise, I don't know of a single guy that's gone chapterless that was perfectly fine and felt like he fit in perfectly well within that chapter and felt like he was a part of things and a contributing factor or contributing member of that chapter. It's always been somebody who didn't feel like they were listened to, or that seems like that was a lot of times the case.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where, our chapter operates. We're pretty open with the way things run within the chapter. We hold elections. We elect everybody annually, and I know not every chapter does that. But when somebody comes into our chapter, and I would like to think everybody who, whether you're a supporter, hopeful, whatever, that you have a voice within your chapter. You should be able to be recognized. This is a men's club, and let me tell you, most of the guys in my chapter, they're alpha fucking males, and if they got something to say, they're going to say it, and you're going to listen to it. And I'd like to think everybody within this club feels like they have that voice. If they don't, then that's a problem that they need to address with the chapter, and you can't make that change by leaving it. Once you've left the chapter, you can't make a change anymore. You're done.
Right.
So, that's something that like I said, I just feel like the guys I know in BV, and not just my chapter, but, BP, me and you travel all over this ball. And I don't know any weak villains. So you would think if they've got an issue, they're going to stand up and say something about it long before leaving becomes your only option.
Right. Yeah. And hey, Peaches, I would just bring you in for a second on this question because I don't know. I guess I should have asked beforehand, so I don't know if I'm putting you on the putting you on the spot for this. But with your chapter, do you guys do elections annually or biannually or something like that?
So we do elections. Our chapter, we just hit 3 years this past May. So unfortunately, we've held a few elections. Some guys step down and end up, not wanting to be officers no more. But regardless, we still do the elections, where members get to vote for who they want to be nominated, and then that dwindles down to whoever ends up winning between the top runners.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've had this conversation before with a lot of guys talking. One of our brothers in the comment section just had a really good question. I'm going to bring that in just a second as well. But I'm amazed at how many chapters do not have elections to this day. BV as a whole being 8 years in, but it really surprises me. And I'm not. This is just BP talking. I am not trying to tell anybody how to run their chapter. But personal opinion, if you do not hold elections, and I'm not saying they need to be annually, but if you do not hold elections that allow people to have a voice in potential change for that chapter, I think you are cutting yourself off at the feet, and I think it's a detriment to the chapter because if it's good leadership that's in place and they are doing good things for the chapter, they will be kept in place by the members. They will vote them back in. But if that's not the case, if you have no elections at all, then I know that there's a possibility where you're going to have somebody that's going to, you may have a coup within a chapter and try to get a bunch of people out of offices or something like that. But if a chapter's being run efficiently and run properly, I don't see a need where there shouldn't be elections. And I think that if you have one person or two people in these leadership positions for an extreme amount of time, and people in that chapter, their voice is not being heard. We heard about it several months ago in the burnout episodes. It was one of the biggest things that people said about burnout is that they don't feel like they have a voice because, and strangely, it came up that way. They don't hold elections. So they don't feel like there's any chance for them to move up, and they're not asked to do more. They're not expected to do more. It's just, this is how we operate, and nobody ever thinks twice about it. And I think that feeds into a very egocentric way of living a chapter from the leadership side of things. And we'll get into the other side in just a few minutes. But have you any thoughts on, either one of you guys have any thoughts on I know Ed, you and I kind of agree wholeheartedly on a lot of this stuff because we've created an environment, or we've tried to create an environment where everybody feels like they have a voice. But have you experienced that same thing there, Peaches?
Yeah, I think people who it's these chapters who have people in leadership positions who don't step down, who don't have term limits, who just want to continue being. And I'll be honest, I'm talking about mainly captains. Um, you can't hold the reins forever. New blood is needed every so often inside your own chapter. I mean, there's something to be said about running things in a democratic way. Do I think everyone in every chapter could captain a ship? No, I do not,
No.
because that's one of those things that's like, you're a good brother, you're a good soldier. I want what's best for you, but you don't hold the ability to lead, and that's not a bad thing. In my chapter, we try to groom up and coming leaders. So when the time comes, they're not going to step into a captain's role. They're going to step into a lieutenant's role or into a treasurer role or anything else so that they can learn how it's done. And then if there's changes that need to happen, then you bring them up. Um, but I agree with y'all that you kind of stifle a chapter when you don't have when you don't give them a voice, when you refuse to let go. Like, okay, you've been captain for 4 or 5 years. I think maybe it's time for somebody to try something different. Now, I mean, granted, like you said, if you're a good leader, you're gonna get reelected. But if you don't, you got to be okay with it. I think too many captains are their egos are so huge just because they get a title. I'm gonna be honest with you both. I move the same way as a regular villain that I do as a co-captain. I don't change who I am, how I move, or any of that. Do I the most that you'll see me change is I'll hold my tongue a little bit more because now I represent my chapter in a different way at a bigger level. And I'm not about to bring shame upon myself or my chapter.
Right.
But aside from that, I am who I am. You get what you get regardless of what position I have, and I don't need a position to lead. No one does.
Thank you for saying that.
That's exactly accurate. And one of the things that when we have new officers coming in, and we've had new officers over the years, one of the first things we explain when somebody says they're being nominated and they want to run for a position, they're not becoming a boss. They're becoming a servant.
Yep.
You don't accept a position of authority. You accept a position of responsibility. And your responsibility is to everyone who elected you. So the decisions you should be making shouldn't be based on what you want. They should be based on, this is what the guys who are trusting me want. And if somebody's not leading from that, then that's a whole nother problem right there. If they're leading to feed their own ego,
Absolutely.
then they need to take a long look in a mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that Ed loves to tell our guys the same thing. We're not going to do this forever. If you want to step up and take the patch, I'll gladly hand it to you. It's we hope that that when guys are ready, that they're willing to step up and they want to take the reins. That's perfectly fine. I don't want to do this forever. I know Ed doesn't want to do this forever. And so we made it mandated from day one. We're having elections. I mean, the very first thing we did was have elections. And, after that, we made a set of standards that we're going to keep with annual elections. And we decided and one little weird thing that we did, and I'm really happy that we've done it, because there was a period of time about 2 years ago where you saw a bunch of turnover in captains, and you had several chapters where they lost both captains simultaneously. And it could have been from elections, or it could have been one was elected out or not reappointed, and then the other one got upset and they left, or both just got upset and left, whatever the reason was. But one of the things that we put in place, and I actually am very happy that we've done this, is that we alternated our election years for captains. So our captains' roles are 2 years now, and they're on alternating years. So if he decides to step down, or if I decide to step down, or if one of us gets replaced, it's on an alternating year. So you always have, hopefully, one captain in place that has done it before that can help, guide the transition. And, we're trying to think of the future because we know it's inevitable. We're not going to stay in these positions forever. So that's one of the reasons that we've done that. Mars chimed in the comments section. I am doing this forever and ever. But it was actually
Mars is a board member now, so
yeah, he's able to do that.
Really?
Yeah. It's funny how he talks he talks a little differently now that he's a board member, right? But
A little bit.
his comment that he brought in, I did want to say, because it brings us to another topic a little bit, and then I want to take a second and bring in some of these comments that were given to me earlier today. Not all of them will go in some small segments here, but he said, at the rate the villains are leading chapters, we should be talking to chapters to understand what went wrong. Was it scouting process, or did the chapter fail a brother or not? And I really think, and that comment was agreed with by several people in the chat line here live, because I think it's something you have to look at in the scouting process. I know Ed and I have had comments, talk back and forth about how, because both of us are scouts, and we see when chapters are putting guys up for villain patches very, very quickly. And, how much homework are you really doing on these guys? How much are you teaching these guys the ways? And then, it's, as I've said before, one of my biggest concerns when we're talking about that scouting process is, I know that there are chapters out there, and I'm not saying that my chapter is that my chapter that we, when I say my chapter, I simply say that because it's not my personal chapter. I say that because it's the chapter I belong to. But
no, it's your chapter.
not at all. But within our chapter, one of the things what bothers me is it bothers me when I don't see it, is that we teach our guys from the jump when they come in as hopefuls, even as a supporter when they're just kind of feeling their ways. We don't disrespect them. We don't treat them any differently. When they're a hopeful, they still have a voice. They don't vote, but they still have a voice and an opinion because they're a man, they're a person, they're a grown person, and they, you have, until you really get to know somebody, you don't know what their life experiences are. They could be much better versed in something than you are. And so to throw away that potential voice, in the room is just completely insane to me to do. So we let our guys, from when the first time they come in, they have at least a voice in that room. And I think this is one of those psychology things for me anyway. It makes sense to me that if you treat your hopefuls as subpar, when they finally get, because one of the comments that we're going to be talking about, and we're seeing several of the comments when they come in that I received from people today, was that there's a huge contingent of people that are upset because people it seems like they're patch chasers, or that they don't respect the older people, and they just want to jump in and have a voice right away and run things right away themselves right after getting their villain patch. And my concern to that is, if you treat them like crap, if you treat them subpar as a hopeful, when they finally get their villain patch, now they finally feel like they have a voice, but you expect them not to use it. So if you're not allowing them to have a voice from the beginning, what else do you expect them to do when they finally get that villain patch? They're going to say, now I can finally speak, and they're going to want to do it. It's like a 21-year-old who can finally legally drink. They're finally accepted, and now they want to have that voice. If you're not teaching them from the beginning that they have a voice, what else can you expect? But do you guys have any thoughts on that? With the questions of the scouting process, are we doing enough, or are we failing those guys?
I think if you bring somebody in super quick, I'm sorry, Peaches, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good, Ed. You're good. Go.
I think when you bring somebody in and you patch them super fast, that really to me is not going to, for them, it's not going to feel like something they earned. It's just something that was given to them. In our chapter, you're going to do probably about 9 months before you get patched. We're going to know you. You're going to have made it. We've got, but we don't make it public what we want to see, because we don't want guys chasing a patch. That's something that gets discussed between myself and BP, since we function as the scouts for the chapter currently. Whether this guy is checking off all those boxes that we expect him to check off, and that's as simple as, are they making it to meetups? Are they making it to charity events? Are they, we're extremely active as a chapter. So if we're not seeing you once a month or so, that's when we start asking guys, is this really where you want to be? We preach to the new guys. We are not an internet chapter. We do not live on Instagram or Line or anything else. We expect to see your ass in person doing things for real. And that's not to mean we're always doing charity or we're always, out doing work. Sometimes we're just getting together and having a pizza and a beer. Sometimes we're at somebody's house having a bonfire, but if your chapter hasn't hit that level of activity and you're losing guys, well, then maybe that's why you're fucking losing guys, because you're not doing jack shit. And I'm sure that's going to be real unpopular, what I'm saying right now, and I don't care. That's reality. If somebody's not involved, then if you're not involving them, don't expect them to be involved. That's a standard. And I'm speaking to officers now, you need to hold your chapter to that standard. And myself as a co-captain, BP as a captain, we should be held the most accountable, not the least. So yeah, the standards that you set for your captains should be the highest.
Yep.
I agree. I will say this. I'm sure neither one of you know my story, but I came up as a villain in the Inland Empire in California.
Cool.
So I was taught very different than how villains are taught out here on the East Coast. And I'm not throwing any shade at anybody for anything. Do you? But I will say this: if from the scouting perspective, I started my scouting journey 2020 in May. And I can tell you right now that the issue is that we're allowing people to come on board to get their scouts patch, but that's not doing them justice if they're not being guided correctly as to how to scout for your specific area, for your specific chapter. And some people are scouts but don't know how to submit.
Yeah.
Some people are scouts and don't really have standards for how somebody becomes a hopeful. Um, I'll say this: 9 months is a pretty decent amount of time to get to know somebody, right? Sometimes you know right away this guy is all in, and there's other times where you're like, let's let him sit for a minute, right? For for our chapter at Chesapeake Bay, we don't have a, well, you're gonna in 6 months or 3 months or 9 months or 12 months. No, it's your journey. You have to show us you want it. And how do you do that? I'm not gonna tell you. I'm like you said, once you tell somebody, you don't know if they're doing it because that's what they were told or because that's how they are. It's easier to just sit back and watch and then figure out how they want to go about their journey. Um, I think Scouts 101 needs an upgrade, um, in the sense that you get thrown in there, and I mean, what do we hear? Read the notes, ask questions, somebody will answer you. No, if you want, okay, I'll give you an example. Something that really bothered me when I first got over here to the East Coast was, um, you got over here on the East Coast, they call them hopefuls. On the West Coast, they don't have that. You're they don't have a hopefuls chat. They have port. They have, and you're not allowed to put hopeful. You're not allowed to put supporter. You're not allowed to do any of that stuff. And then after X amount of time, then you get to put supporter. You raise your flag, then you become a BV hopeful, and you still can't put it. And a lot of this stuff could be resolved if the scouting had clear guidelines as to even what we're going to call where the new guys come into. Everything else can be however the chapter sees fit, but certain things should be kind of the same across the board throughout the world. I think that would go a long way. Um, Again, I do think there's some other aspects of scouting that need to, maybe um, be revamped. But, Mars, you're here. You're a board member, so maybe you could take that back, brother.
That's
I
right.
mean, I agree with what you're saying 100%. I also agree with, yeah, Mars, fucking fix it.
Yeah, it is. There's a bunch of what it, and unfortunately, some clubs, and you see it if you're a scout, you see it when it happens a lot of times. Obviously, you can't 100% judge, but you can at least with an intelligent mind see something, and you're like, look at this guy's has only been a part of this thing and only posted for how many weeks, and you're already putting him up. I mean, is that you're trying to grow a membership? Is that what's really the? I mean, how well can you really get to know somebody in that amount of time? And there are a contingent. We've seen it. If you've been around more than a few years, somewhere you've seen it where guys will do everything they can, go. They'll be on top of everything for 3 months, so that they get to that point where they're eligible, and somebody will put them in for their villain patch, and then you never see them again. And it's a sad truth, but that's why we kind of, and it's not a hard and fast rule like Ed was talking about 9 months. It's an approximation. It seems like that's kind of where things have typically landed.
Yeah, that's
with the
been
average
about
person,
the average.
with the average guy that is active, that comes around, that type of a thing. But it still comes back to, I think you have to show these guys respect. You have to let them feel respected, and it's the idea that scouting needs to be revamped is, it's a big one, but it's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, let me take a second here, and I'm going to run through a few of these comments for you.
Yeah,
and-
let's not beat up just captains over all this. We got other
Oh no,
stuff we can.
there's a whole boatload of these comments here that there are a wide variety of commentary on what people have said are problems. So if you'll stay with me here for a few minutes here, I've got a handful I'll start talking about, and then we'll come back and then we'll go talk about some more here. But so let's go first. If I can figure out my buttons here. All right, going over to here. So I'm just going to run through some of these. These are all anonymous. I've taken off the people's names that said these things. But I want to go through because you'll notice there is a trend. There is a definite trend in this. And I'll come back to the screen here for just a second. There is a definite trend that seems to be happening, and that is that brothers that have been around since the early days, when I say 2014, 2015, they have a different mindset versus the people that are probably 2019 and to the present. And there's a pretty graphic nature of this delineation between the two, based on the comments that I've seen, both in this question that I've raised, but also in in talking about the burnout episode, the two burnout episodes we were talking about. But there's a big difference. So I just want to break down some of these here. This brother said, I've been in BV for 8 to 9 years, and it's definitely a different club now than before. It was just better before. Well, I wish he would have explained how. It was just better before. So many snakes, power-hungry brothers who focus on patches, ranks, and titles more than their brothers. It's a shadow of its former self. Moving on. It's a lot of dudes in it for the wrong reasons. Some just want positions of what they think is power and don't want to be a good brother. The game changes. Can't run the same plays you ran 8 years ago. I do like that phrase. The game changes. You can't run the same plays you ran 8 years ago. No adjustments are made. Also, BV doesn't address or fix issues. That falls on you, Mars, now. We're grown men, so if some don't like it, it's the most simple way to deal with it, meaning to leave. I think people get to a point where they're not getting anything out of it, and the reason for that is they quit putting in. I've learned in my life, change is inevitable. You have to learn to adapt and look at the good that's done. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Got a few more here before we start to another conversation. Before we start to some comments and questions about this. Backdoor deals, scouting out potential bros for personal gain, lack of support, fake captains, officers treating bros like shit. I can go on and on. Now, this isn't all chapters or all brothers. It's a merch grab or a rank chase, or it's bros that get trashed, so they shut down. They get trashed on, so they shut down. Capo chat is trash along with multiple other chats. Well, this person definitely feels some way about the chats. There's some love, but not much. Lack of support, shutting down new ideas, not growing as fast as you expected, bitterness, hate from love received, being accused of trying to be insta-famous, OG bullshit that just needs to end from stagnant-ass members, terrible leadership, lack of changing leadership, the list goes on. And one of the last ones here, I'll get to this. Do this right here. Somebody was piggybacking off that last comment, the blatant disrespect, open racism, the lack of interest from leadership, the clique movement being accused of being too eager when you are the only one bringing in ideas and solutions to the chapter. So many to list. Then we had a brother just went all out and said fake ass power hungry so-called brothers. But I will say, I'll come back here and bring you guys in just a second on some of that. A lot to digest there. A lot to digest there. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the guys that have been around and still active and in most likely leadership positions from the jump, from a long time, maybe from the beginning of their chapter's existence, oftentimes they're the guys that I've seen, and these are some powerful words that are not going to come off well to some people, and I apologize for that now. But some of y'all that have been in the longest are some of the biggest problem when it comes to this leadership part of it. You have an ego that says, I need to be respected just because I've been in for X number of years. And you shun and push away guys' good ideas because they're new or they're newer. You're not supposed to have a voice yet. And you are doing yourself and your chapter a disservice if you're not, at very least, listening to these people. So it's this whole thing is about give and take. It's both sides of the coin. And I think there's the side of the people that have been in the longest and the side that have been in just for a few years are both going to have to give a little on this and respect the fact that the other opinion is valid, that the other opinion that people have is valid. Guys, what do you think?
I think.
Go ahead, Peaches. I'll let you go first this time.
Appreciate that, Ed. You know what? I I think it's easy for us to spot a patch chaser. Um, Hence why you shouldn't submit somebody 3 months in. Um, you know that patch chasing stuff is quite easy to spot. The fake love and fake captains and stuff like that. I'll say this: are there captains who are fake and just wanted the position for the title? Yeah, I'd venture to say there is. The thing is, BV is voluntary. BV is supposed to be a brotherhood. BV is supposed to be fun. You start diving into all this politic type stuff and you start expecting this and that from others. No, I mean, look, what is a brotherhood? A brotherhood is this. I pick up the goddamn phone today at 3 in the morning because I want to blow my head out. Somebody who is my brother is going to pick up the phone when I call and talk me down, regardless of the time. A brother is broke down on the side of the road. What do? It doesn't matter what time of day it is. You go without expecting anything in return. We've lost that. And until we as a unit, and when I mean as a unit, I mean, like BP said, not the big BV, I'm talking about all the chapters, we all come to the same understanding that we need to bring certain things back, it's not going to happen. All the fake love's still going to happen. Listen, I tell my guys all the time, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't want to be. And one of the first things I ever say is, if I don't like you, I'm still cordial towards you, and if you need me, you can still call on me. We don't need to like each other to be brothers. We don't need to be like each other for you to need my help and me be able. So, you know, I do think some of the older villains from 2014 to present need to take a look inside and be like, oh, fuck, maybe I am the goddamn problem. My bad, BP. I tried.
Oh, you're good.
Um, but those men who are in these leadership positions for the power of it, what power? Titles don't mean shit. I mean, to me, listen, if I was voted out tomorrow, I'd still be moving the same goddamn way I move today. It's just a title. It means nothing. We get paid for nothing. We, as both you and Ed said, when you become an officer, you're not taking it for the title. You're taking it understanding that you're there to serve. You're there, and you're good. What's going to be required of you is more discipline to be the example you want your guys to see. You have to hold yourself to a much higher level than anyone in your chapter can or would. But people have lost that,
Yeah.
and I do think people. I mean, it's a beard club, y'all. A beard club that happens to do charity and enjoy each other's fucking company. Period. Point blank. We need to get back to having fun.
Your dad was connected to
Somebody on a phone call now? What just happened
That's
there?
not me.
Okay, that was
Ed?
weird. It says 1 second. Yeah, his audio's all messed up now.
And there you went.
He'll come back and tell us
Yep.
his side of things. But yeah, you're right. It's and this isn't to slam on all the guys that have been around that long, because there's some great examples of some guys there. You know, I've spoken with a few great brothers that have even told me that they realized on their own that hey, I was done. I couldn't put it in anymore. And for me to be still in that leadership role after 5, 6, 7 years, it was a detriment to myself and the chapter, you know? And so it was time. And so there just needs to be an awareness about it. Of really, you know, if your chapter is stagnant, if your chapter's not doing anything, then there's a reason. And it's not always the simple one. Ed, you had some thoughts on that. Sorry.
Well, honestly, I think I'm about to piss everybody off.
Do we need to make a
And
disclaimer here?
well, yeah, because Peaches, I think, was very eloquent about things, and he's right.
Been
I'm just
called
gonna
many
say
things,
it like
but not that one though.
I'm just gonna say it how I feel. The new guys coming in, you got to pay your fucking dues. It's just that simple. This is a brotherhood. It's a family. If you're new, expect to pay your dues. For the older guys, and I'm not one of them, but for the guys that have been here for 8+ years, the fuck have you done lately?
Hey,
What you did back in 2015 matters to me not at fucking all. What'd you do last week? What'd you do last month? What'd you do 6 months ago? And if the answer is I sat on my ass and I drank a beer and I didn't plan any meetups, I didn't attend anything, I didn't talk to anybody, I didn't do jack shit, what are you hanging your hat on exactly? What is it you've done for this brotherhood that, there is a rift right now. And guys are right when they say BV has changed. And I chalk it up to COVID, not because of what COVID was, but just because that's the timeline where it seemed in my estimation to happen. And that was, I like going to the super meets. I like going to the big meetups. I like going and seeing a lot of brothers that I don't get to see all the time. And when you walked into, a super meet 2019, beginning of 2020, there was this feeling of family when you walked in there. There was this feeling of openness. And that does, I'm not trying to sing Kumbaya or something, because let's face it, we're a bunch of assholes. I mean, we bust balls. It's what we do. But when you walk into a meet now, there's not that same feeling. It's like guys gather around and hang out with the same guys they always hang out with. And you look over here and there's one chapter at a table, and you look over there and there's another chapter at a table. And it's not a big melting pot merge like it used to be. There wasn't that sense of joy when you came in. And even if it was because you wanted to go tell somebody what you think of them playfully, that's not there anymore. I don't know if you guys feel that when you walk into the, like an East Coast meet, or we just came back from a West Coast meet. And that's not to say the meets aren't great, because, God knows I love them. But there isn't that same sense of familiar. I guess is the word I'm looking for. There isn't that same sense of brotherhood that there once was.
Yeah, I know you and I, Ed, have talked about this a lot, and it's part of the reason that when we travel, we do what we do, and we tell our guys the same thing. It's not uncommon when you go to these larger events or any multi-chapter event. If there's more than one brother from a chapter there, it's not uncommon to see a table of this chapter here, a table of this chapter here, a table of this, and some of the first chapter multi-chapter events that I went to, everybody was just blended together. And I've heard from multiple people that some chapters encourage their guys. We stay together. We're a unit. We do everything. We move as a thing. We're all together, and that may work for some, but it creates a divisiveness, I think, amongst the brotherhood as a whole. And you guys might be close, and so when we have Ed's very very accurate in that, when I first came in the late 2017 2018, the first several multi-chapter meets I went to, everybody was just everywhere. If you just looked in the room, you couldn't make out where chapters were. And we tell our guys, and we've said this from as long as we've had this chapter, we've told our guys, when we go to an event and you go with us, we're okay if we don't see you the entire time that event's going on, because I'm gonna mingle with all the other people that I don't get to see very often. I don't want to hang out with, all of the brothers that are from my chapter the entire time, and we don't want you to do that with us. We want you to experience what this is and experience the brotherhood for it is. Spend the entire night with everybody else. We'll check in with you. We'll know if you're okay. But that part of it has seemed to dissipate a little bit, and some of it goes down to a multitude of different factors. But yeah, I've seen it too. I don't know if that's something, Peaches, you've noticed as well.
So I came in 2019. My first meet ever was the World Meet in LA. And you when you're new, you kind of stick to who you're with because they're familiar. You know them. But then what ends up happening is, well, for me, the guys that had been in for a while will introduce you to other guys from other chapters, and next thing you know, like, your particular chapter is all over the freaking place. You don't see that anymore. Like you're saying, now it's like, I'll give you an example. Southern Maryland and Chesapeake Bay. Anytime we're all in the same area, you're not gonna be able to. The only way you can tell is because we're wearing different shirts and it says who we're with, but that's it. I do my best to walk around every meet, and if I follow you and I haven't met you, I make it a point to meet you and chop it up for a little bit. And I think the reason some of that is lost is because what I noticed is the type of villains that we're making nowadays just aren't comfortable interacting and being that kind of involved with meeting other people. But again, that's just my 2 cents.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think that, like, we host a big event every October, and one of the things we always preach to the guys is, we've got people coming into our house. You need to make them feel welcome in your home. If somebody comes into my house right now, I'm not going to sit my ass on the couch like I'm doing. I'm going to get up. I'm going to greet them. You want a beer? What can I do to make your life better while you're in my house? That's how, if you're hosting a meet, that should be your goal. Your goal should be for your guests to be taken care of, and they should be made to feel like family. And that, so if we do have guys in our chapter that are not socially, they're not social people at all. We host an event. We got a certain few guys who are always going to volunteer to work in the kitchen because it keeps them away from people. And that's their thing, whatever. But we don't let them stay back there the whole time because we want them to get out and meet people.
Yep.
I travel around the country for work and just trips or whatever. If I'm down, my brother lives in southern Mississippi in Biloxi. I get down there, I'm gonna hit Eddie up. I'm gonna hit villains up that aren't in my chapter. And when you're traveling, get on line chats and find out who lives where I'm going. And now you got built-in brothers waiting to hang out with you.
And
These are
excited
things
at
that should be happening. We're gonna call ourselves brothers, then let's act like it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I got a few more here to go through of these comments, and there's a couple that I wanted to highlight because I really liked what they had to say with some of this stuff here. So, if you don't mind, let me get into this here real quick. One of our brothers, this a little bit long, but I love this one. Yeah, he put some thought into this. He says, "This is a great topic, bro. I feel like there is an element of generational stigma and division that has happened in the club. And this is kind of where we're leading with this conversation now. The OGs that everyone likes to criticize are those who answered the call when this idea of BV first emerged. Sure, they were as a social media club, but as a selfie-taking movement, but from what chapters were born, captains were selected, patches were handed out, structure was created, and the pillar of charity took shape, of creating a fraternity of men working together, united only by a beard and a desire to share in something bigger than oneself. We now have a club where a competitive element has creeped in, of those trying to work out or to outwork others as a way to prove their merit. Who flies the most kilometers? He's from Canada, by the way. Who sells the most merch? Who has the biggest event attendance? Like all things, a movement or organization has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has a trajectory that it has yet to be defined. Stop with the judgment, stop with the point scoring, and start from a place of humility. Meet each brother on their level, listen, and learn to tame your ego. It is the real killer of what being real or keeping it 100 is supposed to mean. I'll say that again. It is the real killer of what being real or keeping it 100 is supposed to mean. Look forward to tuning in, brother. Always love for you. That one spoke to me because he said so many different things in that. And let's see. I got a few more if you can stand by with me here, guys, and we'll talk again about some stuff. Some of the shorter ones here. People talk about the glory days, but this is a poignant one. People talk about the glory days, but don't attend meets. People talk about being all charity and don't contribute. People talk about brotherhood, but never reach out when others are struggling. People would rather see BV fail than walk away, and that's just sad. We should be building each other up and not tearing people down. Support the brotherhood, not the brand. It's the brotherhood, and that's true. People talk about brotherhood, he says, but never reach out when others are struggling. I liked this one too. This is a good analogy. I like the way I see it. BV is somewhat like a church. It's not the church that changes; it's the people inside, aka the chapters that change. I left my chapter for a year because it had become a cult of personality, just like many churches too. The chapter did a course correction, and I came back. I don't blame BV as a whole for that. In fact, I stayed BV and just left the chapter. People that blame, this goes into another topic that we've talked about earlier, but people that blame Fred don't know Fred. It is his business. So that's a different thing. But the first part of that comment I really enjoyed. This one was interesting to me, and I wanted to save this one and mention this one. This is kind of a long comment, but This is from the side of a spouse. This is from a spouse of one of our brothers, and who reached out and commented on my post, as somebody who has seen firsthand how it's affected her husband. I've been the spouse of a BV and strong supporter of BV since the very beginning. Like you, I've seen some people come and go. Some got booted, some left for personal reasons and didn't want to share, which is okay. Some very amazing people left for negative reasons I can't say or don't agree with. In my neighborhood, you've got people in officer roles who steal charity money, some who are constant drama for our other brothers in surrounding chapters as well as their own, officers who encourage their own chapters to bully and exclude the wives of brothers. Goes on to talk about the family and how back when it used to be family first. They were prominent, and feels like those have been tossed out the window. It's important that we acknowledge everybody's opinion on this. One of our other brothers says, I think that people in general don't like to change, so when things begin to change, they blame externally instead of looking internally and change. I like to think of it as growth. The chapters of BV themselves, there's some chapters that do and have done incredible things with their platform. If you're in a chapter that hasn't done the same, they may feel discouraged, or even in some cases that they don't belong. In my eyes, you truly learn the beauty of this brotherhood and what it's about when you travel and meet with your chapter. It changes everything. I don't know how you wrote that. I don't believe you can truly see the future and potential of what BV could be if they have not experienced a meet and on their own. A couple more here, guys. Very specific issue. I think that is a very specific issue. A lot of reading for me. Sorry. Hooked on Phonics worked for me, guys. I think is that
Clearly
the
not.
excitement. Well, it was a long time ago. When you first patch in, everything is new. Everything is fresh. You come in to the brotherhood with guns a-blazing. We don't pace ourselves for the long haul and easily expend what the wonderful enthusiasm. Sometimes you have to relax, let others shoulder some of the work and foster different ideas. Some are just here to belong, and that's okay. Some can't embrace change, while others grow in ways that they don't realize that they've changed. There are always varying views on what it is to be a villain. I think the Brotherhood is still very young and hasn't reached its full potential yet. It takes patience to stay on course. Everything has peaks. Everything always peaks and even drops when things change. I've been in BV since 2018, and since then, I have seen many changes and turnovers in great numbers for many reasons, but the biggest one is some have grown in their own lives and don't have the time to commit. This is what we were talking about earlier. Don't be in charge of somebody else's journey. Time is valuable and unable to get back once you've spent. So you have the time you have to do with what you have to do for yourself and your family. Second thing is having certain brothers try to rule instead of lead. We've talked about that. And that does not always go well. So I think that we've had a bunch of brothers that have really kind of come out and expressed a lot of opinions on this. And I think it's very helpful to do that. We just have to listen to each other. That's the biggest problem. Because as you could tell, you could probably feel by a lot of those comments that there are some that are of the younger generation of bearded villains, meaning that have been in, anywhere from 2019, 2020 to the present, that are very. I don't know if it's a matter of they're just attacking of the older people, very critical of them. In many ways. And then the same thing happens with the guys that have been around for the longest bit of time, very critical of the younger guys. And the problem is that they're both right. They're both right.
The only way to fix that situation is to get everybody on the same page.
Yep.
And right now, like I said, I truly believe right now there's a divide between the older guys and the younger guys. And I'm not talking age groups. I'm talking length of time in BV. And for some guys, BV started. It is not what it was. We're not. I don't give a damn what anybody says. We are not an Instagram club. At least the club I'm part of isn't. I have friends all over this country that I look forward to seeing as often as I can. And to try to keep this what it was in 2015, why would you want that? Why would we not want growth? By the same token, like I said, for the new guys coming in, you don't know. And the way you address it is sometimes it's pretty rough and it's pretty ballsy. To be in something where, somebody's been in here 8+ years, you've been here for 7 months and you want to tell them how everything they're doing is wrong. That's probably not the best way to address it. Now, it's one of those things where how do you address it? Well, again, that comes down to having that voice within your chapter. If you don't have a way to make change, if you don't have a voice to be able to say, this is what's wrong, this is my idea of how to fix it, then yeah, you're going to walk. And guys are going to watch good brothers disappear. And that goes for the older guys too that have been here a long time. I mean, we're seeing, like I said, it's not unusual to see, I feel like I'm still a new guy in BV. But I got guys that I watched come up as supporter, hopeful. They got their villain patch, they got their member, and now they're captains of chapters. And that's great. It really is. But does that alienate the guys that have been there since 2015? Do they feel like, okay, I don't have a place here anymore? That it's the young guys coming and taking it. Well, it shouldn't be that way. There should be a place for everyone. That's what this brotherhood is supposed to preach is, there was a post that you read that mentioned racism. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine anybody doing anything racist within our chapter. I would personally come unglued. BP, I know you would as well. And if that's happening, then do these guys, and I'm going to address the officers again here. Do your guys know the channels where if they feel like their chat, do they know to get a hold of Mars or Troy or, whoever that can help them? Because if they don't, then there's something wrong there. Somebody should never have to put up with sexism, racism, whatever within a chapter ever. And they should know who to go to if they're seeing that happen. And if you're an officer and you haven't provided that information to the guys in your chapter, then you're wrong. But that post right there really bothered me more than I can tell you.
Peaches?
You know, I I kind of feel the same way that Ed feels about the whole racism comment. I in our chapter, we guys know they can speak up. They know that they can go if they can't come to like say me. They know they can go to another brother, and it doesn't have to be an officer. It's just somebody else. And have I seen racism in BV? I got a hint of it at a meet once, but other than that, I mean, that was a very isolated incident. Um, I can't really say that I've witnessed racism. Certainly not in either chapter on either coast I've been a part of. Um, it's if there's a brother in a chapter or that's a villain that has experienced that and no one's helped you, somebody failed you somewhere. And back to Ed's point, if not somebody in the chapter, definitely need to put it out to your people. Hey, these are the people the board members you can go to if you don't like what's going on within the leadership, or something is bothering you and they're not addressing it. But I
Oh,
mean,
believe
we
me,
could talk about
as
this.
soon as Mars got that board member tag, I told all my guys, when you're having problems at 3 a.m., that's the guy you want to call right away. He's waiting for your calls. He's there to serve. So,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to take a second to read one of our brothers who's watching sent me a message, and I just wanted to read this message he sent me. He said, "Being in this brotherhood entails celebrating each other's triumphs and providing solace during challenging times. It means having a network of individuals who understand you deeply, who have your back no matter what, and who inspire you to become the best version of yourself. In a brotherhood, you find lifelong friends, confidants, and brothers who journey through life together, creating lasting memories and an unbreakable connection." I had to read that. I think that's a perfect explanation of what this should be.
That is absolutely what this should be.
Absolutely what it should be. I agree.
Well, we're already an hour and 20 minutes in here. This could go on for 3 hours, and I don't want it to, because nobody's going to last that long. I have several other comments that I wanted to read from direct messages that I received, not just from the IG stuff that I received, but some really good stuff out there. But so I think what I'm going to end up doing is doing a part 2 to this next week. But and I'm sure some people will, after watching this or hearing this, they will reach out and share some further comments or thoughts on what we've discussed tonight. But if you guys want to, I'll kind of leave it with some closing thoughts for you guys. Peaches, you can go first if you have any closing thoughts on what we've been talking about.
Thank you for having me on your podcast first. And just as a closing message to every villain out there that's listening or that will listen, be the change you want to see. I preach this to no avail to everyone who asks. You don't like something, then you make the change within you. You have that power. Oftentimes, you may not have the power to go and change your chapter or the way BV moves, but you can change the way you move. And you can change the way you do things. So, a lot of times it's easy to fucking gripe, but let's get back to being solution based. Let's get back to the brotherhood of it. Let's get back to I need you, and your brother saying, I got you, I'm on the way. That's it. You got to start somewhere. Start with yourself.
Yeah.
And BP, I'm a little upset I didn't know you had shirts and stuff, so just saying.
I'm sorry.
Not your fault, it's mine.
Well, we'll take care of that down the road here. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Ed, you're up.
Well, the first thing I'll do is apologize to anybody I didn't offend tonight. I'll get to you. But the main thing that I'd like to pass on to everyone is learn to listen. And if you're immediately planning your response, if you're interrupting, if you're not listening, close your mouth, open your ears. Everybody in this brotherhood has something to offer you. A lesson you can learn, or something they can pass on to you, a life experience they had that can help you. There's something that they can give you that's going to make your world better. even if all they can offer you is a shoulder to lean on, that's a big thing in this world. And that's something BV offers. For guys that are walking away, think about what they're leaving behind. I couldn't imagine not having 20 guys that I know if I called them and I'm in trouble, I got 20 guys that are going to be here no matter what. And not many people on this planet can say that. My dad, who was the ultimate pessimist, used to always say, if you can count your friends on more than one hand, you are disillusioned. And I can tell you, since joining BV, I don't believe that anymore. There are more than 5 guys I can call who I know will be there. And that's rare. That's really rare in this world. So be there for each other and listen to each other.
I love it. Love it. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for taking some time out with me tonight. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping and close things out here, but definitely can't thank you guys enough. Peaches and Ed for, it sounds like that's a musical group from the 70s.
I hear you.
Peaches and Ed. Yeah, that's the t-shirt we need to make. That's the t-shirt we need to make right there.
Oh boy, I'm good with it, Ed.
Important things will just be peached.
Oh, that just implies something totally different.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I'm not sure he wants to be your pit. Well, guys, thanks again so much for taking some time out. And I look forward to for carrying this conversation on in the future. I think we do have a lot to talk about. I think there's a long way to go with this, and it's learn to listen is so important. I almost interrupted you in the middle of your saying that whole thing for comic relief purposes, but also just to let you say it again to let people hear that. But if we can just set our egos aside, all of us, sometimes it's not what it seems. Sometimes the person you think is trying to do something for Insta fame or to be BV famous isn't doing it for that reason, but maybe because you've seen it before, you think that's what it is. Maybe they're just trying to help out, and maybe they're just trying to share some of their life experiences that maybe they can share with you to help out. Maybe those younger guys need to pay attention to the fact that don't be so quick to judge the guys that have been around for a long period of time, that they don't know what they're doing, that they've seen a lot. And we need to, those of you who are in that boat, you need to pay attention to some of the things they say. It's hard, and I get it. If you're like me at all, you're not somebody who stands around for status quo. If you think you see a better way to fix something, if you're like me, you don't like that answer of that's just the way it is, or it's just the way it always has been. If there's some way that you can fix things to make it better, why wouldn't you want to? And you have to be delicate about the way that you approach some people. Everybody's different. Everybody hears things differently. So that's the one thing I'll push forward with this is just patience and pay attention to what other people are saying. One of the things I used to tell people on the street all the time when I was going to domestic situations, I think I've said this a couple dozen times here before, I would tell kids and I would tell parents when they're having arguments together, pay attention to what somebody's saying, not how they're saying it. When we take emotion out of something and you can finally actually hear the words that are being said, it makes a world of difference. So, guys, that was my Geraldo moment there to close things out. But guys, I appreciate you taking some time. Go have some fun tonight with what's left. Enjoy the weekend and have fun. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right. All right. So I do appreciate those guys taking some time out tonight. And yeah, awesome stuff. This is why this podcast is awesome for me. I get to listen to the opinions of other people. I get to learn from so many of our brothers. And I laugh now at, I laugh wholeheartedly at this comment from Mars. I have to bring this thing in here. Yeah, BP, set your ego aside so you have a podcast, big wow. Exactly. And if you knew how many people watched this amazing podcast and listen to this live stream on a weekly basis, you would not even be able to fill a 16 pack of crayon box. You wouldn't even do it. I've said it before. You guys, I love being here for you guys. I love being here to talk. And last week was a perfect example of what it's like when BP's sitting in front of this camera, in front of this microphone, basically talking to himself the entire hour. That was basically what happened last week. So, hey, I'll be here if it's just for myself and for my own learning about what's happening in the lives of our brothers out there. But guys, for now, if you have any other comments on this, please reach out. Let me know. I think next week's going to be a part 2 on this because I still have a lot I wanted to delve into. I knew that this hour would be a little bit short for being able to cover everything, and we even went past that and still are short. So, long episode. But as I close out, I want to say again, please keep our West Virginia bros in your thoughts and prayers. And please keep Ron's family in thoughts and prayers. Everybody that did lose him this week and is real close to him, people that whose life was impacted in a positive way. It's always hard to lose someone. So please keep the West Virginia boys and all of their families in your thoughts and prayers. Guys, hey, an hour and a half for this episode. It's going to wrap it up. Guys, I want to challenge you, as I always do, to be the heart. I just messed that up, too. Be the villain that the world needs you to be, because the heart of a villain never stops beating. Most important words I say every week, though, guys. Please remember them well. It's okay not to be okay. If you are hurting, please find a brother to talk to. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. Well, guys, have a great night. Enjoy this weekend coming up. I'll see you back here next week for episode 182. Until then, guys, take care. Stay safe.
Every chapter, every caption. Heart of a villain, bro. Lights, camera,